The night it all snapped, I remember standing in my parents' dining room, holding a tray of glasses I never wanted to be holding. The house smelled like rosemary chicken and polished wood, warm, familiar scents that somehow made the coldness inside me feel even sharper. I was placing the last glass on the table when I heard my sister's laughter ring out from the living room. 32,000 followers, she squealed. Brands are finally noticing me. Sienna always had that effortless spotlight glow, golden curls, bright voice, parents orbiting her like she was the sun itself. And I was the furniture. Necessary, ignored, rarely acknowledged unless something needed doing. Mom rushed to her, cupping her face like she just announced a Nobel Prize. Oh honey, we're so proud. Truly. Dad glanced at her phone as if checking stock prices. Impressive numbers, he said, giving her the nod he had never, not once, given me. I slid into my chair quietly. 28 years old and somehow still the ghost at my own family's table. Dinner started with the usual chatter. Sienna narrating her day like she was live streaming, Mom and Dad hanging on to every syllable. Then Mom picked up a steaming bowl of potatoes and turned toward me. Nora, sweetheart. Her voice had that sugary edge, the one she used before dropping bad news like it was a gift. Your room upstairs. We need to talk about it. My fork paused midway to my mouth. What about it? Sienna needs a dedicated studio, Mom continued brightly. The lighting in her room is terrible. Yours is perfect. And honestly, she's growing so fast. This is important for her career. Before I could form words, Dad's hand slammed the table hard enough to rattle the glasses. You've had that room long enough, he snapped. Either make space for your sister, or find somewhere else to live. The world went quiet. I heard the tick of the kitchen clock, the hum of the refrigerator. Sienna smirked into her wine glass. It's not like you're doing anything in there besides, what? Playing with spreadsheets? She said, pretending to sound innocent. The old me, the one who swallowed insults like vitamins, would have shrunk. But instead, I cut a piece of chicken, chewed slowly, and said nothing. Because while they were busy praising Sienna's follower count, I had spent years building something they never bothered to ask about. Certifications, late-night courses, clients from 3 countries, investment accounts I'd grown from dust. My little upstairs room wasn't just a room. It was the headquarters of a company earning more per month than my parents made in a year. But they didn't know that. They'd never cared enough to ask. I placed my napkin down gently. I'll give you my answer next Sunday. Confusion flickered across all 3 faces. They'd expected crying, begging, the obedient daughter they'd sculpted. Instead, I walked upstairs with steady steps, closed my bedroom door, and dialed a number I'd saved months before. Hi, this is Nora Vale, I said when the realtor answered. I'm ready to move forward with that property we discussed. She didn't even know yet what my true plan was. The house across the street from my parents' place had been on the market for weeks. A charming brick colonial with bay windows and a front porch that caught the afternoon light. I'd seen the sign every morning as I left for coffee runs. I'd imagined what it would feel like to walk out of my parents' shadow and into a life of my own. But now it wasn't just a dream. It was a message. I toured the place with the realtor the next afternoon. Every corner, every polished floorboard, every sunlit window whispered freedom. But it was the view from the upstairs study that sealed it. The perfect angle to see my parents' front door, visible. Every day. I want it, I said without hesitation. As soon as possible. She blinked. We can close by Wednesday, but that's unusually fast. Are you sure? I smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. That night, as my parents watched TV in the living room, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and transferred the down payment. Years of quiet work, of patience, of swallowing the bitterness of being invisible. Every dollar felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. But before I shut Dad's laptop, left open beside me, I froze emails, statements, a folder labeled expenses. I clicked. $192,000. All poured into Sienna's career. Cameras, lighting rigs, editing courses, flights to influencer conferences, even a second mortgage. I sat back staring. They had gambled their future on her while calling me a burden. The next morning, Mom tried to start cleaning out my room early, just to get ahead, she claimed, nearly tossing out my client files. Dad muttered about ungrateful children while I made breakfast. Sienna strutted around measuring the walls like she already owned them. That I barely heard any of it, because Wednesday arrived. And with it, my keys. I watched the movers load my belongings while my family was out, my desk, my books, my documents, my future. By noon, I stood in my new house, sunlight painting the hardwood floors, the air buzzing with a strange mix of terror and triumph. That night, as I prepared for Sunday, the day they expected me to hand over my room, I didn't rehearse anger or revenge. I rehearsed calm. Because nothing hits harder than being completely, unshakably sure of who you are. Sunday arrived and I walked into the dining room wearing a blazer and quiet confidence. Mom smiled tightly. "So Nora, your decision?" "Of course," I said, setting a leather portfolio on the table. "I brought paperwork." Dad's eyebrows knit together. "Paperwork for what?" I opened the portfolio, revealing the deed, the keys, the transfer receipts. "I won't be giving up my room," I said softly, "because I don't live here anymore." Silence. A pin could have shattered it. Sienna laughed first, confused. "What are you even talking about?" I slid the house keys across the table. "I bought the house across the street." Mom's breath caught. Dad's face drained of color. You what?" Mom whispered. "I run a consulting firm," I continued, voice steady. "A successful one. I've built it quietly from my room, the same room you assumed was worthless. I moved out Wednesday. My belongings are already there." Dad sputtered. "But how? On whose money?" "Mine." The word hung there like an earthquake. Sienna swore under her breath. Mom stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Truly seeing me. "You bought that house?" she asked, pointing shakily toward the window. I nodded. "The one you see every morning." Eli, who had been lingering near the doorway, finally spoke. "Good for you, Nora." His voice cracked a little. "About time someone in this house recognized your worth." And for the first time in years, someone did. I gathered my portfolio, tucked my hair behind my ear, and stepped away from the table. "I'm not leaving out of shame," I said, pausing at the doorway. "I'm leaving because I finally know my value. I hope one day you'll see it too." Nobody moved. Nobody knew what to say. And as I crossed the street toward the home I bought with my own hands, I realized something. Being invisible in your own family hurts, but becoming visible on your own terms, that's power. I unlocked my front door, stepped inside and smiled, quiet, certain, whole. Let them watch me now.